Welcome to the Brewers Institute podcast. I'm your host, Michael Capaldo. I'll speak with experienced brewery owners who have launched and grown their own brewing business. I'll share their wins, mistakes, and share advice on what they do differently next time. Everyone, g'day. This is Renn Blackman from Blackmans Brewery, founder, or would I call you a co-founder of Blackmans Brewery?
Yeah, co-founder, yeah, yep.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the podcast, mate. This is really exciting.
No worries, thanks for having me. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, how I was thinking. So you're the second guest I've had on this podcast. The first was Sean Sherlock, and I guess the reason I wanted to interview you was because we've known each other for so long in the brewing industry. How long have you been in the game for?
I studied brewing back in 2008, I think, back at ECU in Perth, which was pretty fun. So that's where I met you and Foxy and the professor. Yeah, so it was back a while back, which is good.
Yeah, are you a WA boy?
No, I'm from Geelong originally. So I grew up in a town called Drysdale, and then just sort of I did business at uni for probably 3.5 years, and I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. It was like linked with tourism, and then I kind of looked around and saw there was a brewing course in Ballarat, and there was one in Perth, and I knew nothing about beer. I liked drinking beer. I didn't even really know what hops were, and Ballarat seemed pretty cold and Perth seemed pretty exciting, so I just moved over to Perth with Jess, who wasn't my wife then, but we moved over together, and enrolled at ECU, and she was doing marketing over there too.
That's exciting. That pretty much mirrors exactly the same story about how I ended up at Edith Cowan University studying as well. Exactly the same. I was a home brewing nut needing to take the next level, and I was like, I could go to Ballarat, and Ballarat's great, or I just saw the life adventure ahead of me, and I'd been to Perth once and it was lovely. So
I popped over for like maybe 3 or 4 days before I enrolled in the course, just to make sure it was, because I'd never been there before.
Yeah.
It looked like a pretty fun place. Went to Little Creatures and had a beer, and I actually went to the Monk as well. I ended up working later on, but it's seemed like a cool, pretty fun scene in Fremantle. So yeah.
So was the Monk in Fremantle the first brewery you ever worked at?
Yeah. So I got a job there, just sort of 1 day a week, helping out Foxy clean kegs, and then I think I started doing some keg washing for the Sail and Anchor as well around the same time, and
that was literally across the road, right?
Yeah. So just did that, and then I think by the end, I was doing a couple of days, 2 or 3 days during uni, and then by the time I finished, a job had popped up to kind of help out as Foxy's assistant brewer. So I did that, and did that for another 18 months, I think, after uni.
Was it called Mad Monk at the time?
It was Mad Monk, Mad Monk when I started, and then it changed to the Monk. And then it's no more anymore, which is a shame, but such a good spot down there. Beers were great, the venue was cool, food was yum, like it was such a good spot right on South Terrace in Freo.
Absolutely. And so did you finish your education at Edith Cowan University?
So just did the postgrad in brewing, which was 12 months. So did that, and finished studying at uni, which was exciting, and then just sort of worked from then. So we kind of we'd spent that time in Perth just working at the Monk, and Jess was working in marketing by that point, so she'd got a job in Subiaco for a pretty trendy marketing agency, and then we decided we wanted to move over to London, so we applied for jobs over there, and we moved, I think, there in 2011 maybe. And I got a job at Camden Town Brewery.
Did you?
So
that's a crazy little brewery, the one under the station. That's 5 vessel, really automated.
It's an amazing setup. So I'd never seen a brewery like that, and I had 3 interviews, I think, 2 others at 2 other breweries. And I didn't know anything about Camden Town because they'd only sort of started 6 months before I got there. And I walked in there and I was like, wow, this setup is so amazing. Like it was 20 hect kit, fully automated. And they sort of taken over maybe 4 or 5 railway arches underneath Kentish Town Station, so about a 10-minute walk from Camden. Just super impressive setup, and the beers were so good. I all their recipes and stuff had sort of been done by like a German brewmaster. So like their lager was delicious. They had a really nice American pale, and they were kind of the only brewery that I like in that short time when I got there that tried beers. They were the only ones sort of doing that modern sort of style that we were all making in Australia. So making beer in kegs that was carbonated and with hops and stuff in it. Whereas the other breweries I tried were pretty old school English in cask. So yeah, it seemed pretty exciting to go get a job at Camden. Yeah.
At the turn of the century in London, I think Fuller's was the only brewery. Like year 2000, not the year 1900, like there wasn't much, and Camden Town really, like, there was they were part of one of that first movement of craft breweries, but they were certainly big. And I remember going there, and I got married in 2010 and was in London, and Camden Town Pale was everywhere,
no, they really, really grew. Like, I think from when I started to the time I left, they'd grown so big. It was like thousands of kegs a week were going out the door just from a pretty small brewery. It's really wild.
And was Alex the head brewer by then?
No, he started just after I left. So I think I reckon he was interviewing around the time I left. So around that time. Yeah.
So another product of the Freo beer scene, as he would have come from Little Creatures being head brewer there.
And I think he was there for a couple of years at least, I think, and then he started his own up north, which they make some pretty good beers too.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of the context of this podcast is for people who are starting new breweries or who have got existing breweries and are looking to lean on other people's experience. So interesting to talk about your partner, your wife Jess, and her background. So your background is brewing, but Jess's background is marketing.
Yeah, which is probably even more important than brewing, really. When you're starting a brewery, it's pretty important to have some good marketing and branding to get it all going.
Yeah, so you both started how did you start the venture to start? Why did you decide to start a brewery together?
So we suppose living in Fremantle, sort of immersed in that craft beer scene at that time. So there's like Little Creatures and Sail and Anchor, and just the vibe of beer was so exciting and fun. We just thought, how cool would this be to start back where we were from? So Jess is from Bendigo, which is a couple of hours north of Torquay and Geelong, and I sort of grew up about half an hour from Torquay. So we lived together a bit in Torquay before we went over to Perth, and we kind of thought, oh wow, what a great spot for a brewery. During that time, we sort of went to the UK and we travelled and spent time in Europe drinking heaps of good beers, and just sort of that whole time we were always sort of fantasizing about how cool it would be to have our own brewery back in Geelong sort of area or Torquay. We moved back to Melbourne, and I got a job at True South, which is out in Blackrock in Melbourne. So I was there as a head brewer for about a year and a half, I think. And during that time, we were kind of looking at spots to rent down in Torquay to like sort of just start like a little brewery setup. Probably the plan was to sort of just do something that was like, I don't know, 50 to 100 litres and just try and make some beers and put them on tap in a bar. But during that time, we kind of loosely found a spot, which was where we are now in Bell Street in Torquay, to rent. My boss came to me and said that they were looking at selling the brewing equipment if I was interested in buying it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't know how I'd ever buy any brewing equipment with like it was a pretty good setup, like a Newlands 12 hectoliter kit with it was all pretty nice and shiny and copper.
Those are beautiful kits. Yeah, is that the same kit they had out at Byron Bay Brewing Company?
It's the same one, yeah. So same setup. So he said, oh yeah, we're looking at selling it, but we could set it up with a supply deal to supply us back still. So I kind of had a contract of about like 3 or 4 years worth of beer that I could get signed and sealed to have cash flow from sort of day one. So we spent probably 12 months, or at that time I was still working for him, figuring out the ins and outs of how we do it, speaking to banks and figuring out who we needed to borrow money off and all that sort of thing to get it happening. And eventually we got one bank to go along with it. And with the supply deal to make them, we were making them between 20 and 40 kegs a week when we moved all the equipment down to Torquay. So that was pretty good kind of.
That's between 50 and 100,000 litres a year, right?
Yeah. So it was a really good little start. to kind
before you've even had to like make your own recipes and produce your own brands and beers and all that sort of thing, you've already got like a steady revenue stream there.
Yeah. So it basically just paid the rent. So we looked at how much the rent was going to be, and that money coming in covered those costs, which was great. And yeah, off we went. So we brewed a couple of beers before we moved the equipment down here. So I had the first two beers, Reginald IPA, which was our first beer, and Ernie was a Golden Ale at the time. So we did those two, got them ready, and then we got down here. And so just an old restaurant. It's called the Surf Rider. It was quite a famous restaurant that had been empty for quite a few years in Torquay.
Yeah.
And hey, was. And it'd been empty, and we spent probably 6 months in the lead up to opening, sort of just pulling the whole thing to bits. It was really a pretty sort of 90s kind of fashion. So yeah, ripped all the ceilings out, redid the bar. My dad's a builder, so he was a huge help at the start. He helped us basically make the restaurant, the venue, and get the brewery area ready and all that stuff. So we did most of it ourselves with him, so which was a pretty good learning experience. And then we put all the equipment out the back. I think we opened just before, maybe 3 or 4 weeks before we actually started brewing here. And yeah, it was just Jess and I and probably 4 or 5 others out front in the restaurant. I had a good friend, Mitch, who worked at the Monk. Do you remember Mitch? He was an amazing sort of beer chef. I convinced him to come over and open for us as a chef, because I didn't know any.
I do vaguely recall having a lot. I don't know if I recall Mitch, but I remember there was a chef at the Monk who was massively into his beer pairings. I remember he used to make a Rauch beer, and he used to incorporate the Rauch beer into the salt.
Yeah. So good.
He was really into all these little cool things. Is that possibly the guy?
Yeah. So he had a little company called Beer Zine as well. So he'd make little beer condiments and amazing cheeses, and it was so good. But yeah, we convinced him to come over and do the menu, which was great, because it just meant we didn't have to sort of think too hard about the food side, and we knew it would be really good to start. So he was here for about 5 or 6 weeks when we opened. And the food was great. Beers were good because we'd already made beer before, which was good. And yeah, off we went.
That's really interesting. I guess the theme I'm seeing here is that when you started the brewery, you knew how to make beer, and that's really important. But you were leaning on experts to help you in other areas of the business as well. So you had Jess in marketing, you had your dad in building, which was really important, and you had a chef who called in as a consultant, so that you didn't have to come up with a beer menu.
Yeah, it was just kind of like things we'd seen and things he knew, and we just sort of came to like an awesome menu that kicked off really well, and people liked it when they came in. At that time too, like the food scene probably in Torquay and the beer scene, like no one knew what an IPA was or a pale ale in Torquay as much. They were just sort of used to drinking normal beers, and the food scene wasn't up to the standard it is now either. So people coming in, the food and the beer were great. It was exciting and new, and it's really good.
Well, talking about beer, I like drinking a beer during a podcast. So
I've got a beer.
This is my background's on Blurb. Talk us through? Here we go. Talk us through this beer here, Renn.
So this is a beer. We've got a bit of a side project called the Barrel Farm. So we make barrel aged beers and sours, and we put them in all different types of wine barrels or whiskey barrels and let them age for a long time. So this is our Flanders Red. So it took us probably 3 years to make. We just basically put some kind of red beer into some barrels, added some Philly sour yeast in some of the barrels, and some Brettanomyces bruxellinius, which is Belgian sour yeast, into the barrels, and let it sit for 3 years. And then we just tasted all the barrels we had. Some of them were pretty average and some of them were pretty good. And then we just blended the ones we thought were good back into we made a base beer in the kettle, which we were going to blend with. And we blended those sour barrels into the kettle and then boiled it and then sent it to the fermenter and fermented it again and then put it into the can. And this is the result of a blend of lots of barrels.
Cheers, mate. That's great. Look at this. This smells amazing. This is
And we kind of obviously wanted to make it a bit approachable, not too wacky and sour, but it's still got all the underlying kind of classic flavors that something like a Rodenbach would have, but probably not as funky as that. But it gives you the general idea.
Yeah, it's got that nice little lactic sourness as well. Has it got maybe a touch of the acetobacter in there as well, which is what you're looking for that in the Flanders Red, right? Not many
for sure.
You want that.
Yeah. No, so it's pretty exciting beer. And yeah, it takes a long time to make. Not very profitable, but fun for the brewers to make and some customers to drink. And we didn't make. I think there was only about 1,000 liters of it that we ended up with. So not a huge amount, because that kind of, it's pretty niche, those styles of beer, and there's not huge amounts of people around that want to drink them. But it's fun to kind of keep it all exciting. And
yeah, when I went on your website and I saw a Flanders Red for sale, I was pretty excited.
Cool. Oh, that's good. Yeah, well, we've never made one before either, so we were pretty excited to make it. But yeah, it's good.
That's excellent. So you've told us about who you are, where you are. So you started the production brewery.
Yep.
How did you find the startup capital to start your brewery?
Initially, so we borrowed some money off family, and then we also, with that contract we had at the start, that kind of gave us grounds to kind of give the bank us the money. So, and then over the time we just used banks, so to then borrow more money, which over the time we probably borrowed too much money to buy too many things, which is something I've learned. Probably you don't want to go too far with the debt because you don't really have to.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, because it's such a capital intensive industry, and so many people get into brewing because we're passionate about it.
Yeah. Oh, it's sort of what I learned was sort of there's all these things you kind of want and you see other breweries have over the time, like really nice bits of kit, which we've kind of got a few over the time. Like we've got a centrifuge and we've got a few awesome little things that do great stuff, but some of the things you don't really need. And you can make really good beer without borrowing heaps and heaps of money. Yeah, if you're a good brewer and you know what you're doing, you can still make quality beer. So I think if there's anyone out there looking to start a brewery, just probably good to not buy all the toys they want.
Yeah, and it goes. I think it also goes back, like you've got the education to be able to understand what toys you want as well and how to use those toys. And I guess once you use all those toys, you can say, maybe I didn't need every bell and whistle. You know, you can spend as much on beer quality as you like. I guess we'll get to beer quality a bit later on because it's a really important topic. So you borrowed money off family and then you borrowed off banks basically. So you had that cash flow going. And
so mostly financed through banks over the time, which we've still got a reasonably hefty bank debt, paying off everything, but we've got enough money that comes in each week to kind of finance that debt. So.
And how's your business structure grown over the years?
As in people within the business, or?
Yeah, so like, do you have full-time accountants? Do you have a CFO?
So we've got we work with an accounting company, so an accountant and like a financial advisor. We're in touch with them weekly, and then we kind of have probably every 3 months have a pretty good catch up about cash flow and where things are going, and forecasting as well with them. So it's really good having them involved. I think we've had accountants involved since the start, but not to the sort of depth that we have in the last probably 3 years. So that's really helped kind of control the direction of where we're going and what we need to kind of grow and stuff by having those experts involved to kind of help us and guide us through that, like especially tough financial times too. It really does help to kind of have someone that really knows what their way around money, and the tricks around it. So and then sort of within the business, it's all sort of day to day that we've got an accounts person, so she works full time, controlling like in and out invoices and all those aspects of the business. And then myself has quite a bit of input with that too. And then that's sort of the financial side.
How many staff would you have had when you started? How many full-time equivalents when you started, and how many?
So when we first started, it was just Jess and I that were basically full time. So we used to just work every single hour. We lived upstairs in the brewery too, so there's a little apartment up there, so that was quite handy because we worked all the time.
No kids yet, right? At this stage, I imagine.
Nah, no kids. So yeah, it was. I think they came a few years in, 3 years in probably.
What year was it you started, Renn?
2014.
Yeah.
Okay.
Started,
yeah.
So it was just you and Jess to start with, and
yeah, just Jess and I, and then we had in the restaurant it was just sort of casuals, probably for the first 6 months, and we just sort of worked every hour out there and every hour in the brewery, and then we probably got. I think I got an assistant brewer to kind of help out in the brewery, maybe a year in. And then same deal, I think we got a venue manager maybe 12 months in, or maybe 18 months in, just to help out in the venue. And so we still would work shifts, but he kind of ran the shifts and we just sort of would come in to help as required. And yeah. And then I think, so that was year one and year two. We probably had, we had a head chef obviously too. So we probably had 5 or 6 full-time employees from like the first year. And then maybe by, I think the third year we started a little bar in Geelong, which was, it's called a good beer bar, and we had we do all our beers, and then we usually have 3 or 4 kind of just beers we liked from around the place around Australia we put on tap, and we had so we got another venue manager there. The team started growing, and then in 2016 maybe no 2019, we started Ocean Grove, so that was our 3rd venue. And then again, we would have added more staff then, venue managers and chefs. And yeah, so that's like a little burger bar on the coast. Got 16 taps there, and you can drink beers not far from the beach and eat pretty good food.
So you've got 3 venues now, right?
We do, yeah. So, but over the time, that little beer bar we started in Geelong during COVID, we shut that down. So the capacity went from, I think it was about 60, dropped down to about 8. And our lease was up, like it sort of come to the end of the lease, and we could renew the lease, or we didn't really know. It was right at the start of COVID, and we were like, what are we going to do? We're going to keep this thing going or just pull the pin. So we pulled the pin loosely, knowing we'd kind of been looking at the production site in Grovedale, which is on the outskirts of Geelong, knowing that we have a hospitality offering there too. So we stopped that, and I think we kind of signed the lease for the Grovedale site around that same time. So we moved a bunch of the stuff there. So we took all the cool room and the beer taps out, and pretty much stripped the venue out and took all the stuff with us to the new spot, which was our production brewery. So that was, it must have been 2020, I think. 2020, 2020 or 2021. It's hard to remember that around those times.
Yeah, sure. Is it still the Newlands kit you're brewing on?
Nah, so the Newlands kit's still at Torquay. So that's the 12 hect Newlands kit. We've got 5 Newlands fermenters, and then we had at Torquay, before we started the Grovedale site, we had maybe like 14 tanks just scattered around the place out in the driveway, and we had like a canopy with some containers, and we had all our storage under that, and we had a forklift driving around. It was getting pretty dangerous and pretty chaotic. So that's the reason we kind of looked at getting a production site that was sort of dedicated to making beers and making things more efficient. Whereas at Torquay, it was originally just like a little space out the back that we kind of made beer for the restaurant. It wasn't really designed to make, we were probably making 300,000 litres a year out of it, and just distributing it and getting it out of here. And it was just, pretty chaotic. So that was the reason we made the decision to start the Grovedale site in Geelong.
Amazing. And I guess fast forward to today, what sort of equipment do you have, and how many litres are you making a year now? If it's too equipment, you don't have to tell me, by the way.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, we make about 500,000 litres a year. We have, so the Torquay site still just makes sort of 1 brew a week. And we've got some serving tanks here. So we just sort of pump a beer across, and sort of 6 of the beers on tap are always in serving tank. And then Grovedale, we've got a 25 hect. It's a tea and tie Chinese setup. We've got the old original Matilda Bay tanks fermenters, so the ones that Colonial had for a few years, and then we bought them off them. So
wow! So they would have started off at Matilda Bay, the brewery in Fremantle. Again, Fremantle coming across to Geelong, like so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So they're really old German tanks. But they do the job. And that was sort of that thing. I really did try when we knew we were doing the Geelong site to keep costs as low as possible. So if there was old tanks or anything like that, I could pick up. We'd just take them because I wanted to avoid buying heaps of new stuff because I just knew the more debt we racked up, the harder it would be. And then what else we got? A couple of bright beer tanks there. I think there's 750 hectometers. And then we just moved 325 hectometers from Torquay there as well. We've got a centrifuge, which is pretty handy. Oh, we just got a silo, which is pretty exciting. That's good. It means we've brought our grain costs right down, which is good. But we're only just starting to use that. Actually, today, I think, which is exciting. So
that's congratulations. That's pretty amazing because that'll just little capex projects like that to bring down cogs, like a step drop in cogs there's not that many opportunities, I imagine, in business.
No, and that's probably one of the best ones. So if you kind of get to a size where you can, it's well worth it, I think, because you can really dramatically decrease your grain cost. And it's well worth it. It's going to be good.
And save you from opening 50 to 125 kilo bags.
And
opening them. So it's also a handling thing, right?
OH&S, and good for the environment because you're not throwing all those bags in the bin. Less trucks on the road, which is good. You're not getting a delivery every week of malt, just getting one every sort of 3 months. So it should be a good hopefully good investment.
That's fantastic.
Have you ever thought about starting your own craft brewery? At the Brewers Institute, we have an online course packed with advice from the founders of the Brewers Institute for people wanting to reduce risk, save time and cost in opening a brewery. Go to thebrewersinstitute.com.
So you've got this brewery up and running. So how's the brewing, since you've been in business since 2014, I guess if we look at that 10-year snapshot, there was call it the craft beer bull market, where it was growing. I guess for me, there were the bushfires, then there was COVID, and we came out of COVID and there was, really big inflationary pressures. You've sort of been through all that. How have you had to change your mentality? How have you had to adapt your mentality over the stay in business?
Just I think that's just being on your toes all the time. And I think being small helps because you can adapt and change and do things really rapidly. So everything we do a lot of the time is we need to do this and we can do it quick and we do it. So things like we added a ginger beer 2 years ago, or maybe 18 months ago, but that's again helps a lot with the shift away from heaps of people drinking as much beer. And just I don't know, being adaptable is pretty important. Having COVID was pretty hard, so we just everyone chipped in and did their part. The team was amazing. Everyone was out doing pizza deliveries and delivering beer to people's houses. And Rick, who was the brewer at the time, he was working in the restaurant every night, not really brewing much because we didn't need to brew as much. But just having people that are adaptable and happy to do different things, I think it's pretty important. I suppose with current times, it's probably been it's pretty tough with financially with the debt you have and things like that. But that's kind of made us adjust our thinking a lot and try to bring your cogs down and do a lot of these things that you probably not put huge focuses on over the time. So I think, it's given that realization that you need to really be focusing on things and tightening everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess in that period too, the excise rebate came in.
Yeah, which was an interesting one, the excise rebate, because I think that really helped that back end of that boom of brewing grow as well. That made a lot more brews start, and it also kind of it helped. It was it was great. It was going to happen that you're going to get that rebate back, but a lot of breweries kind of then probably lowered their prices because of that rebate, which then kind of probably didn't help everyone out too much either. So.
And especially once you pass that 350,000 threshold, every litre you make past that, you're going to be paying significantly more. Well, you're going to be paying excise tax on it.
Yeah, plenty of excise.
Yeah, what a good guy. going back to your venues again, so are they all branded like Blackmans Brewery?
Yeah, yep. So Torquay's Blackmans Brewery, and then we've also got a beer garden next door, which we've named Margaritaville by Blackmans.
Awesome.
So it's a big space where we do pretty good cocktails and margaritas, and it's just nice, open and sunny on a nice day. But people come, and that's been important too. I think with the venues, adapting and doing not just beer, having offerings for people that, because not everyone loves beer, so having nice cocktails and nice wine and nice things for people that don't drink beer is pretty important too, because that means the people that love beer will bring their people that don't love beer, and they can all have a good time and not just stay for one beer. They can all hang out together and have a good time. And then Ocean Grove's Blackmans Brewery and Burger Bar, and Grovedale is just called Blackmans Brewery. Blackmans Brewery, Grovedale. Yep.
So you've got a few different things in there. So you've got the Margaritaville, you've got the burger joint, and then you've obviously got Blackmans attached to it all, but you're giving people different offerings. So they're not just going Blackmans Brewery, Blackmans Brewery, Blackmans Brewery.
Yeah. In Torquay last summer, when we did the Margaritaville thing, we launched a Mexican menu. So the whole brew pub now does Mexican. We've still got our pizzas, but it's just something new and exciting. And it kind of builds that. It gets more people coming back in that might have been here and go try another venue. So it's good to kind of keep things fresh.
Yeah. Are you brewing a cerveza for it?
We do. Yeah. We've got one. We've brewed one in collaboration with a little venue up in Jan Jack, which is just like 5 minutes from here, which we'll probably run that here in summer. But we haven't brewed too many of them, but they seem to be popular now.
They've taken off.
Yeah. And again, it's that thing that a lot of people like to relate to a local independent brewery. They just want to be like a cerveza, something that they like to drink and don't feel sort of pressure about drinking a pale ale or an IPA if they don't really like drinking it. Yeah. So it's kind of giving beer for everybody.
So you've obviously, we've talked about beer and, the effort and the money you've sunk into beer. Let's talk a little bit about more about the marketing and the branding side of things that I guess Jess runs.
Yeah.
How important is it for a brewery, in your opinion, to have a marketing plan and a brand behind it, or can the beers just stand up for themselves these days?
No, I think marketing's I think it's more important than really good beer, just because it's what people relate to, and that's how you get people into your venues, and how you get people to drink your beer at a pub is if your beer kind of relates to people and they want to drink it and they see it and it looks good. So I think marketing's so important. Definitely.
So life as an entrepreneur with your wife must be like, you guys obviously love each other and you get on great, but it's got to be an amazing balance. How do you prioritize? Like, how do you balance life? Does your family just live in the brewery and that's it, or do you get to have a life outside of work?
We try to keep it pretty separate. Like even we'll have meetings with our ops manager, or senior staff at work, and they'll be like, "Have you guys talked about that yet?" And we're like, "Nah," and like literally it'll just be something from work that got brought up days before. But if we've not caught up at work, we try to not talk about it. And then if you ever do end up talking about work at home, it sometimes end badly. So it's good to just avoid it, and just keep it sort of separate. I think we've kind of probably since we've had kids, it's been a good realization about priorities and where you want to be, and it kind of puts probably work a bit on the back seat compared to your family. So that's been a good thing. Like our oldest is 7 now, so we've probably had 3 years with the business without kids, and then where we just were literally every single hour we were here, and that's all we ever did. And then having kids made us realize that we don't have to always do that. Just go. Like I think going on holidays is another one. We try to make sure we always go on holiday to get away a couple of times a year, and not just be fully immersed in work all the time. Because
great. That's amazing. I've always noticed you guys having a good time. We've obviously been around the trap. So I remember in 2019 when you won the Champion Small Brewery at Abers, and you were like floating on cloud 9. Whenever I see you around the industry, I actually generally don't see you by yourself. I see you with your team a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And your team looks like a great really cohesive group, really trusting group, and a group of people that actually really like each other. How important is the team to your company's success?
It's so important. It's probably one of the most important things. And yeah, we just sort of have a really great team that really cares about what they do. And yeah, and we encourage people to kind of do what they want to do and do it well and just have fun as well. I think that's a huge part of it. Is what's the point if you're not having fun? And yeah, we've just got a great team. We're pretty lucky. And over the years, we've kind of added to the team, and yeah, really good experience has been added that kind of helped us all grow and make the company better. Because that's the thing, like without good people, you can't really do anything. So yeah, it's super important.
So you've gone all this way. I don't even know if you ever want to leave this business, but do you have an exit plan one day? Or do you have, if shit hit the fan, would you have an exit strategy?
It depends how bad the shit was.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like there's definitely no short-term exit strategy currently. We're in it. Yeah, I think longer term, I don't know. Longer term, I think we just want to, keep on growing what we're doing and making beer for Geelong and the Surf Coast. And I don't know, it's hard to say. In the position we're in, we've got plenty of debt. So I think in a few more years, we get to that point where there's no debt. It'll be a totally different story. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, I guess when you enter a business as an entrepreneur and you're spending so much money, it's easy to not have an exit strategy.
Yeah.
And I do like asking people because most brewers who I've ever asked don't really have an exit strategy when they're starting up, but many other industries when they're starting out, I find do have exit strategy in place when they start up.
Yeah, and obviously if you get the business in a good position and it's sort of, I suppose, sellable, like that would be an option. Like at a later point, if you got to a point where you just were wanting to retire and not work anymore, and the business was a sustainable business that someone could just come in and run. I suppose that really, really long term is the ultimate goal because you don't know what you're going to do when you retire. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Cool, fantastic.
Ultimately for us though, like we're striving to have a profitable debt-free business. And if we can do that, we've kind of achieved our goal because we get to do all the things we really like. We work with a good team. And it does allow us to do other things we want in life too, like travel and do stuff. But getting rid of the debt would be great.
So if you were starting up now, if you and Jess were starting up again now, what would you do differently?
It's hard. Over the time, things like goalposts have all shifted so much too. So I think at the start of brewing, everyone sort of talked about hitting 1 million litres and taking over Australia. Whereas over that time, that's changed quite a bit. There's a lot of big players. The supermarkets have come in, so it's all changed a lot. We can't really. You need a huge amount of money to probably take over Australia and big war chest, as they say. So we've kind of over time realised that we just really want to dominate Geelong and the Surf Coast and where we're from, and just add to the community, add to the stuff that we all have here. And just hopefully make good beer for everyone around here. If we did it again, I think with obviously the excise rebate, you'd probably just start small and not go over the rebate. And you could probably have a pretty sustainable business. If you worked in it yourself and just had a little brewery out the back, like 6 or 12 hectares, and made beers for your venue and a few venues around town, it'd be quite a sustainable, fun business to work in, I think. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So make sure you don't overcapitalize. Don't run yourself into debt,
for sure. Don't go too big if you don't have to. Just kind of grow organically, and if you don't want to take over the world, you can stick to a smaller volume of beer, and you can probably have fun making the beers you like to make, and get a great community around you that want to come in and drink them.
Yeah. What about governance? How's your governance been? Like, could you have done anything better in the way you're governing the business?
Again, we were pretty under-resourced from the start, so we didn't have couldn't pay heaps of different sort of people to come into the business and tell us how to run. So we just sort of learn as we went. We've added a HR person maybe 3 years ago. So that's been great to kind of further, I don't know, look after the staff and do great things for everyone else. And it's that thing when you're growing rapidly and even if you do love the people you work with, sometimes you're just so busy you don't have time to check in with them and do those things that you should be doing. So having that person is quite great. And then any other questions about that?
No, that's all right. That's great. And I totally empathise with how many things you'd have to do, and the complexity of people management is really hard, and it's time consuming, and it's super important. So again, bringing in an expert to help you with that, so that you can zoom out a bit, it sounds like a really smart thing.
Yeah, no, it's great. It just means everyone gets the attention that they kind of need. I think people, as we said, is one of the most important things. So you kind of got to look after the people you work with and make sure they're happy. So,
couple of last questions. So I guess this is a bit of a cheesy question, but what does success look like in your eyes?
Yeah, well, probably doing something you really like, and probably, getting to a point where you've got a profitable business. That's quite successful. And making something quality that you stand behind, I suppose.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Last question. If you had your time over again, would you do it?
Yeah, do it. Yep. Yeah.
No hesitation. That's awesome.
It's really fun. Like, it's obviously super stressful and super super hard. Like, there's so many times where you're like, God, this is the hardest thing ever. But the majority of it's pretty fun. And it's good. You're doing something that people relate to and people think's pretty fun. Like having a beer is a pretty fun thing to do. So if you get to make that for people and make a hospitality experience for people to come drink that beer in, it's a good thing to be able to do as your job.
Amazing. Well, congrats on where you've gotten so far.
Thank you.
I've been enjoying following your journey over the years. I look forward to continuing to follow it, Renn. Thanks so much for being part of this podcast. It's been really fun and inspiring to talk to you about your journey.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for listening. We'd really appreciate if you could leave an iTunes review or rating, or follow us on Spotify. It'll help aspiring brewers find our cast and hear the journey of our great guests.